Sorry.
God, I wish I could get my legs down.
A thing that I have a reminder that pops up on my computer. Yes, when I was thinking yesterday, oh, what are we going to do today that's going to cheer me up? I thought, oh, we'll just do all my favourite things. So when I was saying to a couple of people when I was practicing, and anything I did, I was like, oh, no, I don't really want to do that. So yes, so this is not in cobbler pose. People are adjusting their.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, it's never easy.
We're just going to do a few.
Farah, your voice is being overwhelmed by sound from others.
Okay, has it stopped now?
Yes.
They're not quite loud enough.
No, you're very quiet and everybody else is coming loud.
It gets a bit noisy. I think it's calmed down now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's sometimes when we adjust our position and people adjust their devices, that's what happens. So maybe if you are adjusting your device, you could mute yourself. That's one possibility. So lean back onto your arms and come into cobbler pose. See how that feels. I think from cobbler pose, let's move fairly rapidly on into pinwheel. We might spend a little bit of time in cobbler pose after we've done pinwheel on one side. So come into one side of pinwheel and a little bit of circling here. And so when I was doing this yesterday with Cam, we were just talking about how much we like this circling in pinwheel, because it's I find it just very settling, very grounding, calming, these rhythmic movements. And also I think if the pelvis, if there's tightness around the pelvis, it's really helpful for all of those things. And so I think we're just going to stay upright. We're going to, as you probably would have guessed, come back into pinwheel later on, because it is one of my favourite things. So we'll just probably stay upright, do a little bit of circling, ease into the hips. So do circle in the other direction if you've been going all the same way as I probably have been. And then in a moment, well, let's fold forwards a little bit. So turn towards the leg that's going out to the side. Fold the weight of your body down over this leg. And have a few breaths here. And just let yourself settle and breathe. And again, just see how this feels. So when we come into this pinwheel forward bend, there's a chance for the lower back to lengthen out. The chance maybe to stretch a little bit through the hip joint on the back leg. And we won't stay there too long. We'll come back to the centre. So walk your hands back in towards you and slide this back leg on top of the front leg. And then open your legs out into cobbler pose and just see how cobbler pose feels. So I tend to then maybe spend a little bit longer in this second cobbler pose. I mean, again, if it's hard for you, lean back onto your arms. It's just, we're using these movements to try and ease into our body. So there's no point in struggling with something, particularly at this early stage. And then let's move over onto side 2 of pinwheel. So come to here, slide this leg back, and a little bit more circling. Circling and settling. And all the time just checking in with, how do your hips feel? How do your knees feel? We are going to be doing quite a lot of stuff around the pelvis into the hip joint. So it's obviously something I enjoy. And I think because it can be so easy to feel stiff around the hips, and that feeds into the pelvis and the lower back. And I always find if I can release into my hips that it just eases tension around that whole area. So again, from here, if you like, you can turn to face the knee that's going out to the side. You can fold your body over it. You can have a couple of breaths here. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from there again, walking your hands in towards you, coming back up. Let's just one last time, very briefly touch on cobbler pose. And then from here, we're going to take our legs long and wide. And it's really up to you how long, well, no, not how long. It's not up to you how long your legs are, unfortunately. Otherwise, mine would be a good foot longer. It's up to you how wide you take your legs. So often, I think for us, that you know, there's an optimum position where it just feels, you can feel the most settled. So for me, it is taking them quite wide, but for you, it might be having them less wide, and you might feel more settled there. So it could be hands back behind you, probably at this stage. And again, for some of you who really like this, Sally, who else is keen on this? Sally, I know you're keen on this. Yeah, but those of you who really like this, we're again going to come back into it a bit later and spend a bit more time here. Now, I'm just going to show you what we're going to do from here, which you can probably do with me. We're going to, that you sit in, carry on sitting there. We're going to come down into this one, into Anantasana, where we come to balance on our sides. So hopefully you're already thinking, oh my goodness, this is really one of her favourites. And yes.
Are your feet off the ground, Sarah?
What's that?
Are your feet off the ground there?
Feet off the ground. No, my feet are, no, the feet are on the ground. My feet are long, and the outside edge of my bottom foot is on the ground.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be as long as possible on my mat. And I've got my head propped up in my hand, but you don't have to do that. You could always have the head down on a bent arm, or you could lengthen out that bottom arm. So, what I'm going to say is that if in this one, when we take the top leg up, you need your belt, then have it to hand, okay? So we're coming onto our sides. We're doing a little bit of rocking. So we're trying to settle here as best as possible. And don't worry too much about, I don't need to be able to see you here, unless you particularly want me to. So you don't have to move your devices around. So I really love this pose because I suppose it feels quite lazy. We're lying down, but we're also making ourselves feel alert because it's a balance. So with your hand on the front of you, you can rock forwards and back a little bit. And then from here, we're going to see how does it feel to come into tree pose on your side. And you might need to use your hand to catch your ankle. And yeah, just see how that feels. And it's quite active in this top foot, really sinking your heel into your thigh to keep it there. And also keep stretching the heel of the bottom leg away from you. That will help you balance. And then from here, you can move on, folding this top knee towards your top armpit. Now, if you're very wobbly at this point, but I know all of you are very experienced yogis, so you're far more steady than me, but you could bend this bottom knee, so if you feel wobbly. So we're settling here with the bottom leg straight or bent. And then from here, you could catch your trouser leg, your big toe, your ankle. We're seeing if we can lengthen that leg up towards the ceiling. So we've got this feeling of being really connected to the ground through the bottom side of our body. And then this feeling of lengthening upwards through our heel. And see if we can have a few breaths here. And of course, come down at any point, but there's something very satisfying about this particular position. You can feel very expansive in the body, but at the same time, really supported by the ground. And then we slowly start to unwind, like we're reversing film. So coming back to knee to the armpit, coming back through tree pose, and come back to having two long legs and just that feeling of balancing or resting on your side. And I think I often mention this, that when you're in Thailand, most of the Buddhas you see in temples are in this position. And then from here, you're going to roll onto your back for just a couple of simple things. So, you've made it through, but you can, not to the end of class, you can lie down onto your backs. So arrive on your backs, and I think, yes, have your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. And maybe starting with letting your head roll to the right and to the left. Feeling the weight of your head on the floor. Good. And you can also let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So it might be that you want to move your knees with your head, or you might just want to move your knees. So it's entirely up to you. Tilting the knees from side to side. So again, these really familiar movements. So I always think these are quite programmed into me now. As soon as I lie onto my back on a yoga mat, I instantly start rolling my head or tilting my knees.
I do as well, yeah.
Do you? Yes, yes. Well, there's, yeah. And I do think there's something, you know, lots of different levels, reassuring, reassuring, soothing, settling about really familiar things. So the other thing we're going to do lying on your back right now, and you can do that whenever you're ready, is to settle your feet on the floor, settle your knees, and start to press into your feet. And just a few times very easily, roll up and down through bridge pose. And bridge pose is something, it took me years to really appreciate this in yoga, and I absolutely love it now. And just this feeling of, we're not trying to get anywhere, but the feeling of mobilizing the spine as we roll up and down, and I suppose giving the back of our body a bit of a massage. So it's very much about, I used to think it was about how high I could get in bridge pose, and in more recent years I've realized it's about this movement of the spine, and how yoga really gives us these tools to help release our bodies and give us this opportunity to make ourselves feel better if we're feeling creaky. So yeah, 2 or 3 times rolling up and down through your spine. Not pushing it, just enjoying it, feeling that you can ease out tension and tightness. And yes, and then just like Marie's doing, what you're going to do from there is fold your knees into your chest and just have, that's it, just have a little rock from side to side. And you can also take, another thing that as you know, as most of you know, I really love, is from there you can also take your legs up to the ceiling and shake them out, and you can add your arms in, but yes, so that lovely taking the legs up, giving them a good shake out. Now we're going to be in a moment rolling onto side 2 of Anantasana. So you can either roll the other way and not see me, which you really don't have to see me, but if you want to see me, you will turn around, you try to reorganize yourselves on your mats. So we're coming to Anantasana, sorry, if in case you weren't sure, is the one where we're balancing on our sides. So also known as sleeping Buddha, sleeping Vishnu. Propping up your head, however you're going to do it with your arm.
Did you have the head right down on the arm?
You can have the head right down if you like, or you can have the arm long. I suppose I always find it more, I suppose why I like to do it like this, with my head propped up in my hand here, is I feel more alert. And this pose is about feeling, because it is a balance, it's about feeling alert as well as resting on the ground. But sometimes the neck doesn't like this, or the shoulder. Do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. This is all about trying to settle through the side of the body.
Yeah.
And then whenever you feel settled, you can let the top foot come into tree pose. And again, you're being quite active with this top heel, of really trying to sink your top heel into the inner. Yes, I say the thigh, it doesn't have to be the thigh, it might be down. And then from here, and again, you've got your bottom foot, the foot that's on the floor, is the outer edge of the foot's in contact with the floor. You're extending into your heel. And then this top knee can come up towards your armpits, and you can have a few breaths here. Again, bend the bottom leg if you want to, slide that knee forwards on the floor, and then you can catch your big toe, your trouser leg, use your belt if you want to. Lengthen this leg up towards the ceiling. Have a few breaths here. So this place again where we might feel wobbly, and that's fine. We might feel expansive. We might feel settled on the ground. We might not feel so stable. I was just thinking this side is harder for me than the other one.
Yeah.
So have a few breaths here, and again, when you feel you've had enough there, if you're enjoying it, stay there. When you've had enough, the knee folds in towards your armpit, the foot comes back into tree pose, the top leg lengthens out. And then from here, this time you're going to roll onto your belly. And just settle down on your belly. Maybe I like to have my hands under my forehead. We're not going to do anything very fancy on our belly. Just settling on the belly, a little bit of wiggling the pelvis. So on the belly, wiggle the pelvis. Settle yourselves down. See how it feels to lie on the belly right now. And as I've been saying a lot recently, the sort of these health benefits for our breathing of being on our front. And then the other one you're going to do, if you like this one, is the one where we bend our knees, we orientate the soles of our feet to the ceiling, and then we tilt our feet from side to side. And again, you're just resting your forehead on the back of your hands or however is comfortable in your arms. Let the feet rather tilt to the right and to the left. And so in this one, you'll feel the pelvis, the weight shifting across the front of your pelvis. It can be such a helpful movement if you like that. If you don't like it, don't do it. And then from here, maybe just have a breath or two, letting your legs come down onto the ground. And then from lying on your belly, you're going to fold back into child pose. And just give yourself a couple of breaths in child pose and see how it feels to arrive there. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And just see how it feels to be in child pose, because if it feels nice, have a few more breaths there. Don't be in a hurry to move on. If it's not feeling fantastic or you're not that settled, what we're going to be doing from there is in your own time a couple of times coming into dog pose. So if that feels right for you, or whenever it feels right for you, you can move from child pose on into dog. And our intention in these first couple of dog poses is really to see, how does dog pose feel right now? As we come into dog, what do we notice in our body? And there's all sorts of, I'm sort of thinking, oh my goodness, I'm noticing my right foot, my right hip, my creaky shoulders. So in the first dog pose, it might be a bit of a list of grumbles and complaints like that. Oh. Or you might be having a day where you're thinking, this all feels rather lovely. So yeah, but that's why 2 dog poses might be good, because it might be that the first one is just this litany of aches and pains. The second one might feel a little bit easier. And remember, in dog pose, it's really helpful to, exaggerate your breathing. I think exhale through the mouth. Good. And from that second dog pose, whenever you are ready, come down, have a couple of breaths in child pose. We're going to do a bit more dog then as part of a sequence. So again, when I was thinking yesterday about what do I really love, my favorite things in yoga, obviously moving in a sequence was up there. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Feel the contact of your forehead on the floor. That's fine, Sharon. If you're ready to come up, you can always come up out of child pose. Sometimes I think, child pose doesn't always feel where we want to be, and kneeling is always, I think, you could do kneeling as well as child. So let's come on to hands and knees, and I think we should do this sequence together because it is quite simple. We're going to be going from dog into a forward bend, and then from our forward bend down through a squat. But I would say don't have your blocks, because we're just going to be moving out of the squat quite quickly. So it's fine if your heels come up. So hands and knees, tuck your toes under. Exhale, rock your hips up and back into dog. And again, give yourself enough time in dog that you can feel that you've arrived. You can feel how dog is. This third dog. Big exhalations. And then from dog pose, sort of big handprints, walking your hands in towards your feet. So all of your weight ends up in your footprints. You're in your forward bend, you're letting your head go, you're bending your knees as much as you like. And then start to bend your knees more. So we're going to be from our forward bend, coming all the way down into a squat. And it's fine if your heels come up. Just see how it feels. Because from our squat, even if your heels don't come up, you're going to let them come up so that you can roll through the tops of your feet onto hands and knees. And then one of my very favourite things is simple things. This on hands and knees, lengthening one leg back and really extending into the heel. And then the same on the other side. So we get this lovely feeling of the whole of the back of the leg opening out. Oh, which can feel so nice. And then I'm not sure this would really count as a favourite thing, but we are going to come into plank pose. So, not sure of that statistic, but it feels the right thing to do here. So with your shoulders over your wrists, take one leg and then the other leg back into plank pose. And I think this sort of staying in plank pose, and what I really like here is this feeling of being supported through the bones of the arms. Really quite strong. So don't overdo it, particularly Kate. And then from here, let the knees come down and untuck the toes, fold your hips back over your heels into child pose for a breath or two, or in kneeling if you prefer. So child pose or kneeling for a breath or two. Let the hands and the wrists just relax for a moment. And we're going to do that little sequence twice more. So something about the number 3 always, to me, seems is a good amount to work with the sequence. So when you're ready, come back onto hands and knees, tuck your toes under, let a breath come in as you exhale, rock your hips back. Move your heels, pick your knees up off the floor, come into dog pose. Again, big exhalations, enough time to arrive in dog pose, to feel your body in dog. And then from dog pose, those big handprints on the floor, walking your hands into your feet, coming into your forward bend. And again, arriving in your forward bend, feeling the weight in your feet. Make sure you pick your hands up off the floor, even if they touch it, just so you can feel the weight in your feet. And then starting to bend your knees. Knees over your feet. If the heels come up, that's not a problem, because we're going to roll through the balls of the feet onto hands and knees again. And on hands and knees, we're going to lengthen each leg out behind us. So enjoying that feeling of opening through the back of the leg. And then once more, maybe, not sure we go quite as far as that, enjoying coming into plank pose. And yeah, and seeing how it feels. So we're trying to feel that long straight line from our shoulders to our heels. The pelvis is neither dropping to the floor nor sticking up to the ceiling as it does in dog. If you want to stay in plank, you can stay in plank. Otherwise, let the knees come down, untuck the toes, fold your hips back over your heels. Breath or two in child pose, in kneeling. And then when you're ready, we'll do this little sequence one final time. So you can do it in your own time, you can do it with me. So just looking for this feeling of fluidity. So on hands and knees, tucking the toes under, exhaling, rocking the hips back and up into dog. And this feeling of movement, but also this feeling of arriving in each pose, as we call them. So really feeling yourself in dog. noticing what you feel. And then noticing how you move from dog into a forward bend. Can you have these big handprints on the floor? How does it feel once all of your weight's in your feet and you can let your spine tumble forwards and your head hang? From forward bend, as we start to bend the knees forwards over the feet, whether the heels come up or not, and we let the pelvis drop, there's this nice feeling of length through the lower back. Rolling through the tops of the feet, we get to give the toes that lovely massage. And then hands and knees, lengthening each leg out behind us. And then, of course, on into our favourite plank pose. So big handprints. Make sure your hands for plank are under your shoulders. Sometimes we have the hands wide of the dog. Not so helpful for the plank pose. Long and straight in plank, pelvis neither up nor down. We feel the abdominals working. We don't have to make them work. They will work if our pelvis is being held in space. And then finally, when you're ready, folding down either into kneeling or child pose, and just have a couple of breaths. Perhaps a few extra breaths here this time. So letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you, let yourself settle on the ground. Let your shoulders be as undone as possible, your shoulders, your wrists, your hands. You can always wiggle the pelvis a bit. How can we soften and rest and be? So from here, we're going to do I'm going to get you to watch me. I know you will know these things, but I'm just going to remind you, we're going to do our one-legged dog poses. So these are it's interesting, this particular version of this is a real favourite of mine. So you've got different versions. You've got this one, which I really don't like, where you keep your pelvis level and you lift one leg. I love this one, where you roll your pelvis, but your top leg is straight. You can also do this one where you bend the top knee, but that always makes me cramp in my hips. So I like this one. So you can try all of them. We'll try them on both sides. And then from that dog, we'll come into standing. So really just a bit of playing around. They're not, I probably always say this every time we do them, they're not ones to stay in for very long. You don't have to do them at all. You can lift your leg with your knee bent and then lengthen your leg out, or you can lift your leg long and just, is there any of these one-leg dog possibilities that feels good in your body? They might just feel far too much weight in your hands, in which case don't do them.
Are we pointing toes or pushing heels out?
Oh, that's a good point, Kate. I suppose when my leg is straight, I stretch into my heel. You could try both though. And if I bend my top knee like this, my foot's just passive. But then my hips really, I'm not keen on that one. So I think anything like that, I'm just going to walk into standing, but do carry on in your own time. These things are always optional. They're good to play around with. Pointing the toes, it's quite nice for the front of the ankles. So I think it's really good to have a little play around. Beautiful. That all looks very, very nice. And then obviously both sides, and then coming into standing in your own time. And arriving in standing. This is very nice. So Sharon, you were at the Friday class, weren't you? When the class, the video froze for a huge part of the class, so everyone could still hear me. Yeah. But I couldn't see people moving. It was very Marie, when you say about being difficult, that was quite difficult because I found it was very disconcerting.
Yeah.
We were in standing, it looked like everyone was still lying down.
You were very clear though. You were very clear. It was easy to follow you.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. Yeah, it was just very, very strange.
Yeah.
So I haven't had that before. So, in standing, this one, swinging your arms, slapping your arms onto the body. So this is another one that. Not. So I was thinking not yesterday when I was thinking about and chatting with Pam about what do I really like in yoga. What feels really good is these movements where we're moving the whole of the body. You just feel very, I suppose, whole, very pleasant. Yeah, very natural. Very pleasing. Yeah, so a few times just swinging the arms. I think one of the benefits of lockdown is we have all this space in our little room. Swing our arms. And then eventually letting that go and settling down and just having a little look at your feet. Make sure they're hip width apart and parallel. And then we're just going to start, we do these ones quite a lot in these Zoom classes, rocking our weight forwards onto the balls of our feet, coming up onto the toes. So, yeah, I really like these as a good preparation for balancing. I think they start to mobilize the feet if they're feeling a bit stiff. Yes, and there's all different arm things you can do. So today I was going to keep it just very simple. So, and eventually, if you feel that you could stay up there, you can just let your arms float up and let the shoulders drop and just, I suppose, be quiet here. And can we be in a settled place up on the balls of our feet, feeling the flow of breath through us, the shoulders as soft and relaxed as possible. And let's come back down. Let's just have a little shake out and try that one once more. So again, that's sort of looking at the feet first of all, and then you're finding a point to focus your gaze on, possibly on your device, coming up onto the balls of your feet, bringing your arms up. Good, letting the shoulders drop. Breathing, settling, and sort of being in this position. Very nice. This time when we come back down, we're going to go all the way down into a forward bend. So it's quite nice to take your arms out to your sides and then swoop them down like wings into your forward bend. And just be really floppy in your forward bend and let your head go. Good. Very nice. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. And once you arrive back in standing, maybe just a little bit of shifting your weight from side to side. Because we're going to come into balance. We're going to come into tree pose. So again, when I was just thinking, what do I really like? What's the essence of our yoga practice? Tree pose is, perhaps that most familiar of balances. So you're going to choose which foot you come to stand on. You're going to choose when you come into tree where you want to have your foot on your inner leg. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're going to bring the hands into prayer pose. We might take the arms up if we feel steady. So just very much making this the tree pose that you would like to do right now, standing on the foot that you would like to stand on. And then this gathering of the hands to the heart, letting the shoulders drop, just seeing how does it feel to be in tree. And it's fine if you feel wobbly or your leg is sliding down the thigh. You can always have your foot on your ankle. If and when you feel steady, see how it feels to grow the arms upwards. So this is when our arms are like the branches of a tree. My lovely hawthorn tree in my front garden is in full bloom at the moment. So there's so many beautiful trees around this time of year. Little fresh green leaves. So imagine we have these beautiful branches, soft hands, responsive fingers. And whenever you want to, you can also then gather the hands back to the heart in this sort of quiet place. Whenever you want to come back down, sometimes we don't have that choice, sometimes we fall out. Give your legs a good shake out. So if at any point I'm not saying shake your legs out and you need to shake them out, obviously not when not when you're trying to balance, but do shake out the better. So in your own time, try the other side. So it doesn't have to be, it's not going to be exactly the same as the first side. Just, yeah, what works for you today? This intention of settling, maybe more wobbly than we would want to be, but that's fine. We can come in, we can come out of the movement. If you want to, the arms come up, this sense of our branches growing upwards to the sky, and our foot growing roots down into the ground, and the breath flowing through us. From here, the hands could come back into prayer pose. Let the breath flow in, let the breath flow out. Good, come down, have a little shake out. And then from here, we're going to come into a forward bend with your feet about as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And we'll keep it quite simple. Sink into your heels, let your spine tumble forwards. And when you're down in the forward bend, it's entirely up to you. Your knees might both be a little bit bent. You could bend one knee at a time and shift your weight from side to side if you like. I think just try and feel what do you feel drawn to doing in this forward bend? Make sure your weight stays well in your feet. So the heels are very rooted into the ground. And if your fingertips do touch the ground, it's a light touch. You're not bearing weight through the hands and you're really letting your head go. So maybe one more big exhalation in this forward bend. Feel the heels anchor down. And then next exhalation, sink into your heels, roll up into standing. And when you arrive in standing, keep your feet this distance apart. And we're going to come into these side lengthening movements, which again, I really like if I'm moving in these. I feel they can get find it quite hard to breathe if I stay here too long. So one arm is reaching up and over, the other arm you're giving away, the pelvis can move this way. So we create this beautiful sort of half moon, crescent moon curve through the side of our body. So keep going from side to side, this opening through the side of the body, but not staying in a place too long so we avoid feeling fixed and held. But this really lovely opening out through the sides of the rib cage, bottom arm hanging. Okay, so if we're not here all day, just do each side once more. And certainly for me, I can really notice the differences. So one side feels much tighter than the other. I was just thinking, I was noticing those differences in everything, in dog pose, in this, in the balance. And then from here, actually, let's first of all give the legs a shake out. Don't we miss
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, who's that?
Will you
Sarah.
pelvis swing out? Were you letting your pelvis swing out to the side?
Yes, I was letting my pelvis swing out to the side. Yeah, yeah. You don't have to, but I think as long as I would let my pelvis swing to the side. Yes. like that.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I just, yeah, that's very much, that would be very much a sort of Feldenkrais thing, I think, to let your pelvis move.
Right.
So maybe not such a yoga thing, but I've also done that with Dominique, and it just, yeah, it just feels more of a complete, I suppose it feels more of a complete whole body movement if you let your pelvis move. Now look, we're going to take our feet a bit wider now. So obviously be on your mat, don't have your feet on the slidey surface. Take your feet as wide apart as is comfortable for you. We're just going to be doing a forward bend. We're not going to be doing any twists or anything here. Coming forwards, if you like to bend one knee and bend the other, you can. You might just want to let yourselves fold forwards. When you're in your forward bend, just keep feeling your feet on the floor. So you want to keep feeling your weight in your heels, and you want to just keep checking that you're keeping weight through the outer edges of your feet. Yes, and exactly, if you like going from side to side, bending one knee, bending the other, you can. It's really up to you here. Yes, but I think that the important thing here is this feeling that the feet are really anchoring into the ground. And that enables your spine to tumble forwards. So it might be, if you've been shifting your weight from side to side, that you then have a few breaths in the center, really letting your spine flop forwards by anchoring into your heels, growing roots from those heels down into the ground. Have a few more breaths there if you're happy, but you know, whenever you want to, you can come out. And you can have a little shake out when you come out. Kate, how are you doing, love, energy-wise? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right at the moment. Yes, fine, thank you.
We're doing one more thing in standing, so one more standing balance. I will show you what we're going to do. So, Marie, I'm afraid this will not be your favourite, but it's one of mine. From a forward bend, and you may, there's lots of options with this. You may want to block under your hands. From a forward bend, we're going to be seeing, and it might be that I'm quite into taking this leg up bent to start with. We're going to be seeing, how does it feel to start to think about moving towards our half moon pose. So it's the leg, arm, opening the front of the body forwards. You could, if you're not so, you could always do this with this leg, with your side against a wall. You could have the whole length of your body against a wall. That's one possibility. So, there's lots of ways to go into this, but when I was just thinking about, again, yeah, what do I like? There's this simplicity of coming from a forward bend. And we do then have two hands on the floor. So when we're picking up one leg and we're starting to lengthen out that leg, we still have two lots of fingers on the floor to support us, which is no bad thing. So see how that is. So do feel that you can have a wall behind you. Another option that can be quite good is to take the raised leg foot onto a wall. Yeah, so if you're feeling a bit wobbly, look at me here. I've got my raised foot just on the wall. You have to be far enough from the wall, it doesn't push you forwards, but it does help with the stability quite a lot. And as I think you all know, that looks very beautiful, lovely. One of the most important things in this pose to stop yourself falling over is to feel where this back heel is. So if I'm lifting my back leg, I'm trying to send my heel straight back behind me, towards the wall behind my feet. If my heel wavers and moves this direction, I'm going to fall over. So it's the thing, the heel is moving straight back behind. Straight back, I suppose, rather than behind. So Marie, you hating, I know you don't like that, do you? Your hip.
It's just, I haven't got a wall really here I can use.
Yes.
you know, and haven't got a spare bit. I just know I'm not very good at it, that's all, Cara. I don't hate it.
I mean, we all have these things, don't we? I suppose that we.
I'd love to be able to one day do it and add it to my little.
Add it to the three.
Yeah.
So do try the other side. I mean, it's interesting because I've got this, you know, quite stiff right hip, but I was thinking, yes, probably on this side, it's going to feel less pleasant. And yeah, it's just this starting. I think if I'm not being clear about it, it's this the raised heel. We need to not let that leg swing back behind the body. It needs to stay in line with the rest of the body to help us feel steady. This opening of the body forwards.
Gosh, it's much easier to balance on one side than the other.
Yes, isn't it? I think sometimes those differences are more marked in our body. Like I was really noticing that today with this sort of hip thing. And
yes.
And it's interesting because it may well be that balancing at home on your own is easier than it is in class because there are less distractions. So, in an online class, I think I always find, you know, certainly for me, with balances, like Maria was saying, there's a lot of anxiety that can arise. You know, am I going to fall out? What's it going to be like today? And that all gets in the way. How are we doing? Have we done enough? We say yes, very nice. It's very beautiful, everyone. You have finished. If you're still balancing yourself out, wanting to do a bit more, do so. Otherwise, just before we finish in standing, come back into standing. You can just revisit this one where we're letting all the body move. Swinging the arms. And then letting yourself settle down in standing. So looking at the feet, and we'll just have a couple of breaths in standing. So I always quite like this, having one hand on my belly, one hand on my chest, closing my eyes and standing. And this sense of trying to feel yourself in standing. So there's the ground beneath the footprints. It's the feeling of the shoulders dropping. The hands on your body might help you to connect with your breathing. Feeling the breath coming in, the body rising, widening. Feeling the breath leave you, the body softening back, emptying. And it's also quite nice just to let the arms hang. So the shoulders can drop, the arms. I think in one of my meditation books, it talks about the arms hanging as if the shoulders are a yoke. So that's quite a good image. And from here, very quietly, we're going to move. Well, I said we're going to move into forward bend very quietly. But from that forward bend, we are going to come into a squat. And now it would be good to have a block under your heels. If to stay in squatting, you need something. So you might need to get that before you come into your forward bend. And then from standing, as quietly, as simply as possible, starting to let your body fold forwards. Your weight comes into your heels more. You let your head go. Your pelvis maybe moves back a bit. And then you're starting to bend your knees straight forwards over your feet. And if your heels come up, then roll up your mat, put your book or your block under your heels so that we can just stay and have a few breaths in this folded up squatting position where the weight of our pelvis lengthens out our lower back. Some of you might like to take your knees wider apart and fold your body down in between your knees. Sometimes that feels a bit too much of a stretch for the lower back. So if that's the case, do it. We'll have a few breaths here. And then from here, we will be coming back to sit in the cobbler pose once more. And we're going to come back, might be thrilled to hear, through cobbler pose and pinwheel and on into a couple of other things. So see how it feels to come into cobbler pose now. Leaning back, if you like, onto your arms. You might, yes, or you might, or the other thing I was going to say, you might feel happier in cobbler now that you can hold your feet or your ankles. You might like to do some of these rocking. Didn't do these first of all because I thought they might feel a bit much. Sort of rocking. So it's rocking side to side on your sit bones. Yeah, so Sally, you look like you're about to spin all the way over. So there is one in. I wasn't thinking of doing that, but there is one in this where you can. You probably know this one where you can. I'm just thinking, I'll take my hair down. You can rock all the way over. So I'm not necessarily suggesting you do this, but you can go. Yes, you can go all the way over and back up again. But yeah, that might be something to practice on your own if you like.
Not today.
Not today. The other one is this leaning from side to side. So where you're moving less below the waist and you're leaning your upper body over to the right, over to the left. Gemma, is that you? Just got to say happy birthday to Gemma. Gemma, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey, Gemma.
Yay.
Oh.
14. Oh my God.
Oh, 14.
14. Boris Johnson. Oh, you share a birthday with Boris Johnson's child. There we go. one of his many children, I was going to say.
Yeah.
So from here, from cobbler pose, then come on into and yeah, see how it feels to come back to these circling movements. Now, Sharon, you were saying the other day in one of your emails, because we are going to go on to pigeon pose from here, that pigeon is challenging for one of your hips. Is that?
Yeah. One's always a bit tight about. However, when you go in like this, I found I was in it much more comfortably, so I was quite surprised.
Oh, that's good. Yes, I mean, I've got very sort of keen on going into pigeon from this pinwheel, and I was pleased because I did it a lot myself, and then it wasn't that long before lockdown that I started doing it like this in classes, and it seemed to help other people too. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, really helpful.
Yeah, so that was really helpful to get that feedback. So let's before we go into pigeon, let's come to that folding our weight over the leg that's going out to the side, and having a few breaths there. So in a way, I think probably why going into pigeon from pinwheel is helpful is because pinwheel is like a bit like a sort of mini sort of pigeon. And especially when we come and fold down like this, we're preparing the hip well. And let's have a buzzing breath here, because again, if we're thinking about nice things, buzzing breath is lovely on lots of levels. Let's have a buzzing breath in this pinwheel forward bend. So let a breath come in. And then walk your hands in towards you, so you come up a bit again. And then to move on into pigeon, we slide this knee back a little bit on our mat. And then we lengthen out the back leg and we let our pelvis roll over. Now, I think as I always say, if your front knee doesn't like this and there's too much pressure in your knee to let your pelvis roll over and be level, then just be a bit lopsided in this so your weight stays through the top of the thigh of the front leg. So you've got these options in pigeon. So either
Tara, I can't believe anybody's favorite pose is pigeon. It is one of my least favorite.
well, you know, Siobhan, I mean, when I first started yoga so many years ago, I'm not suggesting we do this now. We used to do loads, and I used to do, love this one. We catch both hands onto your foot. It really was my favourite. I don't do that now, really. But I think I still do really like pigeon, I'm afraid. So, yes, I know. But yeah, it was probably one of the first things I did in yoga that I really thought, I loved it. So yeah.
My cat is joining in.
It does hold a special place in my heart. Gemma is shouting in the background that my favourite food is dal and rice, and she's not surprised. She's always very unimpressed.
And we compare.
I like pizza as well. So in pigeon, there are things, I always think a bit of rocking. Toes tucked under helps. You can always come up on your hands. You can be lower down. It's probably just going to get worse from here, everyone, because from pigeon, we are going to be coming into cow legs. And
I was going to say cow is the worst.
Cow is the worst. Okay, who is this? Kate, is that?
Kate, yes.
Yeah, so I'm afraid I do actually really rather like cow legs as well. So from your pigeon, you're going to shift your weight back onto that front leg thigh, and you're going to swing your back leg around into cow legs. And I was talking about this with Cam yesterday, and I do think the trick to liking cow legs more is doing it lots, which sounds, it's really obvious, isn't it?
Sarah, can I say something here? But one of your videos last summer, the little short ones,
Yes.
you had this thing where you suggested that you bring the foot forward.
Oh, the bottom foot forwards.
The one on the top, and just swing over. And I found that so helpful.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
Before
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember, Jan. We were doing this, weren't we? Sort of coming in and out. This one.
moving the hips, I found that really helpful.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that one, because you know I've been. Yes, of course. I will have to look at, yes, because the other day, about a week ago, I was trying to make this list of all the sort of things I could put into classes for Zoom classes. And I hadn't remembered that, and that's a really good one. So thank you. We will put that on.
So Cara, can you just go over? So both sitting bones should be on the floor.
Both sit bones on the ground. The top leg one is going to be a bit lighter. If you're really not able to get that one down, you'll be better off having this foot on the floor over here.
Right.
And
down, then it's where the knees are that I'm never quite sure.
Oh.
So the knees are.
Well, it's sort of where you're going to be limited by what your body can do. I mean, what we're looking for, ideally, is the knees to be stacked one on top of the other, and the knees to be as close to the ground as possible. But I mean, it is going to be restricted by your hips. So I think you can go to where you can. And feel
Does it matter if the feet are out to the side or tucked further in?
No, I think you're trying to be able to sit in it with your feet coming in, and then and stacking your knees. And at that point, you would then think about bringing the feet forwards. But I wouldn't do that unless I was able to be here quite comfortably. But again, you might need to make little adjustments to make it more comfortable. I think we might have been on this side long enough, yeah?
Yeah.
We'll do them on the other side. Uncross your legs. Yeah. Give them a lengthen out. So do feel if we come into cow legs and suddenly there's lots of questions, so you don't have to stay there. Oh, that's quite funny. Give your legs a good lengthen out. Yes, but thanks, Jan. That's really good to remember that one. I should add it to my list of
Yeah, well, I found that it really helped me.
Yes, no, it's a very nice one, and I think that might. I'm trying to remember whether that's again a sort of Feldenkrais movement. Just take your legs long and wide for a moment before we do the other side, and see how this goes. So again, remember, you're not trying to take them as wide as possible. You're maybe experimenting and seeing, for you, where can you sit most easily? Yeah. So how wide is it good for you to have your legs? That means you can sit. That makes it easiest for you to sit. That's nice. You look really lovely in this. And yeah, arms back behind you is always good. We will come back into this once more after we've done the second side of pinwheel and pigeon. And then those of you who really like this could stay here a little bit longer. So let's come back into cobbler, see how this feels. It's looking very nice, Marie. I know this is, you know, it's been a long journey. It's been quite a long journey for you with this one, isn't it? But
And I do like pigeon, Cara.
good, good. So from cobbler pose, come on into pinwheel and do a bit of circling. So circling, settling, and we'll come into our pinwheel forward bend and we'll have a lovely buzzing breath there and just think about settling. So turning our body to face this thigh that's going out to the side, folding down over it, giving our weight to the floor, and then we'll have a lovely buzzing breath when you're ready. So let a breath come in. And then walking your hand in towards you, coming back up. So now we will move on into pigeon pose. So by bringing this front knee back a little bit, lengthening out the back leg. And at this point, just checking that the front knee feels okay. If the front knee feels a bit pressure, you stay in this sort of lopsided pigeon. If your front knee feels fine, you let your pelvis roll over. It's quite good at this point to take your hand on the back of your pelvis, try to feel that your pelvis is level. Looks good from what I can see here, everyone. It's a really good opportunity here, isn't it? I was just thinking in, you know, shutdown times to really be able to feel your own pelvis and start to really understand when it's level. A little bit of rocking, toes tucked under. You can rock yourself up and down the mat a little bit. Or untuck your toes, you can rock side to side. You can be on your elbows, you can be on your hands. Letting your shoulders drop wherever you are, because one of the challenges of pigeon is that because it can be very intense around the pelvis, that we can start to get tense in the shoulders. So see if the shoulders can stay soft. And then from pigeon, we will come on into cow legs. So letting yourself roll back onto that front leg thigh, swinging the back leg around, coming on into cow legs on side two. And so, Kate, a bit like you were saying, that balance, certainly for me, this is the more tricky, challenging side of cow legs. What I'd like you to do in cow legs is any little adjustments you need to make to your legs. But I would like you to do a bit of turning in both directions. So it's quite nice in cow legs to try and feel this sense of lightness from the waist up. Remember, you can always be here. You can always lengthen out your bottom leg. These are all options if your knees are not happy. The knees are the most important thing to really make sure we're not pushing. You could also do this with your hands, if you don't need your hands on the floor, with your hands on your low ribs or your hands on your shoulders, or even your hands on the crown of your head. So in all of these sitting positions, what we're trying to find is this feeling of being weighty from the waist down. So if you're happy in cow legs and you want to be here a bit longer, you can stay in cow legs. You could try folding forwards in cow legs. If you've had enough in cow legs, you're going to lean back and you're going to uncross your legs. And there's going to be time for a little bit of sitting with our legs long and wide. And now I'm realising that I'm probably not going to even have time for all of my favourite things. At one point I thought we were racing ahead, but now have to be part two. Part two
next week.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I'm choosing not to teach in Zoom, like headstand and shoulder stand, because I just think there's too many safety issues, really. I don't know, Sarah, what do you think about those things as you're teaching?
I did actually try shoulder stand last week, but I gave options. Some people used a wall, but it was with an experienced class, and I think people quite liked it actually, but it felt a little scary as a teacher.
Yes, no, that's good to hear, because I think, yes, a shoulder stand with the wall it is lovely. I was just in my Thursday evening class. I definitely, like you said, we've got to be with the right group. So all of you, I'd be perfectly happy in doing that, but yes.
I do miss because I've still been trying a headstand, and I still have not quite got there, and it's still the fear, and I do miss the classes, but I must admit I don't think I'd feel terribly secure doing it like this as opposed to.
No, this is it. I mean, I think if you're thinking about your headstand in this period, it would just be really working on very simple on the base.
Yeah, and just keeping the feeling going.
Yeah, that can be really beneficial. But I think you're right, Sally, and Sarah, I'm sure you agree as well, don't you? That headstand, it's really, we can only do that in a class. And I'd say in a small class, like I never used to teach headstand in a drop-in class because I just felt it was not. I've been in too many drop-in classes and scary headstand scenarios myself. So.
Definitely.
But the next thing you're probably going to think, I really am pushing the limits of what I like. But we're going to be coming to the front of the mat and doing a bit of these movements, which will take us back into our Navasana, our boat pose. So might be, we'll see. So it can all be quite nice to start with. We can be in this sort of position. We're thinking about our spine being really curved. And maybe just starting with the hands on the feet and looking down and sliding your hands up to your knees as you lean back a bit. And then coming forwards again. So your intention here is to let your spine come into a soft curve, the whole length of the spine. And we're sliding the hands up towards the knees, we're leaning back, and then we're sliding our hands forwards towards us. And we're just repeating this. And then in these ones, I really find that they benefit from lots of little repetitions. And eventually from here, we're going back, we're still looking down, we're maybe looking at our belly now. We let the feet pick up off the floor and then looking forwards to come back up. And it's going to feel, I feel the first few times I do this, it's not particularly smooth. So looking at my belly, let my feet pick up. And then looking forwards, might be a little bit jerky, that's fine. Just keep repeating this one. Down, looking forwards. Down. Forwards. Do that a couple more times. Forwards. Just for a moment pause and bring your hands into this part of your back. So I often say this, we're seeing if we can come to rest on this. I don't know if it's the bit between. Jen, can you get the door, love? Sorry, my doorbell's just rung. Jen, thank you, love. Sorry about that. So yes, we're coming to rest on this sort of part between the rib cage and the pelvis, if we can do. So let's see, with the knees bent, let's see how it feels to roll back into that place. And just, keeping the knees bent, where do we, can we come onto that part of our back? And then come up again. And then this time you could try and see, so roll back, lean back, looking at the floor, looking at your belly as you get lower. Come onto that middle bit of your back. And then can you stay there as you, lengthen your legs out. Oh, and then coming back up again. So maybe I'm not convinced of this. As we get to this point, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I'm not that. I really like this much. So rolling back, rolling back. Can we come on to that sort of middle part of the back between the rib cage and the pelvis? Still some of the pelvis is on the ground. We do it one more time and then you get to lie down, which is everyone's favourite. So one last time. Looking at the ground, looking at your belly, rolling down. Still going to be contact of the top of your pelvis on the floor, middle of your back, maybe the bottom ribs. Oh,
bloody hell.
And then lie down. Lying down on the back, having a few breaths. And we are going to move a little bit on our back, but
that's my dog.
Down, having a few breaths. I think I might mute everyone now, just because we're going to be doing some quieter stuff. So lying on your back, and yes, it's nice seeing you all doing slightly different things. And eventually settling down, it could be with your knees bent, it could be with your legs long. And bringing your hands to rest on the front of your body. So we have this lovely soothing connection of the hands on the front of our body somewhere. It could be wherever we like, the ribs, the belly. And just feeling that ebb and flow of the breath. Letting the body settle. Rolling the head or letting the head roll from side to side is nice after Navasana, that boat, it might be Ardha Navasana, that half boat pose, just because we're supporting the head with the muscles in the front of our neck. And from rolling your head, find a comfortable place to settle your head down on the floor. And then what I'd like you to do here is keep your, let's see, if you could, I'd like you to organise yourself so you've got your right knee bent and your left leg long. So your right knee is bent, your right foot is standing on the floor. Your left leg is long. So one of my very favourite things is coming into this pressing of the right foot. So arms resting on the floor. As you exhale, you're going to be pressing down into your right foot, letting the pelvis lift on the right and letting the pelvis tilt towards the left. So you keep contact through the left side of the pelvis onto the floor. The left leg stays long and heavy. The left leg maybe rolls a bit on the floor. And just repeat this movement several times. As you're pressing into your right foot, send your right knee forwards, away from you, over your footprint. So there's this feeling of opening through the front of the right hip joint. Very nice. And just try to make this distinction between pressing into that foot, the pelvis lifts on the right, you stop pressing, the pelvis settles back down. Lovely, seeing some very nice knees going on. Let's do this once, maybe twice more on this side. And then come to rest, either with both legs long or both knees bent, and just let yourself settle and rest. Maybe come back to the feeling of the breath moving in the front of your body, your hands on the front of your body if you like. And then in your own time, you can bring your arms back to rest on the floor. You can bend your left knee, stand your left foot on the floor. And then start that same movement on side 2 now. So as you exhale, pressing into your left foot, sending your left knee away from you. The right leg is long. That's it, the right leg is long and heavy on the ground. So the pelvis lifts on the left side as you press into your left knee. No, press into your left foot, sorry. The pelvis lifts on the left side, the pelvis tilts to the right. The right side of the pelvis stays heavy, the right leg stays heavy and relaxed. And see if you can find this rhythmic movement of pressing and then not pressing, pressing and then not pressing, coming in and out. Pressing and the pelvis lifts, stop pressing and the pelvis settles on the floor. So again, maybe just once or twice more on this side. And then let yourself settle and quieten. Let both legs be long or both knees bent. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then one last thing, bending the knees, bringing both feet to stand on the floor and coming right back to near to the beginning of class where we're rolling up and down a few times into bridge pose with this intention that we're mobilizing the spine, that we're massaging, giving ourselves a massage through the back. We're not worrying about how high we go, what shape we're making, just how it feels to roll up and down through the spine. Make sure your feet are really well planted on the floor. Marie, I wonder if your feet could be a bit wider apart. So yeah, that's it. So you can always experiment with, we want the feet to just be as planted as possible. And we can sink down into them, we can let the pelvis lift, we can pick some of the spine up off the ground. And do this maybe 3 times in your own. Yeah, that looks nice, Marie, actually, with the feet a bit wider. Lovely. Yeah, it looks really beautiful. That's it. Very nice. Make sure the arms are just really relaxed on the floor. You think about bridge pose as a movement rather than, I say pose, but it's this rolling up and down movement rather than being anywhere or trying to get anywhere. And then yes, after your bridge poses, folding your knees into your chest. I'm just going to briefly, unmute you before we lie down. We lie down for relaxation, because I thought one final thing, how could we have favourite things without having happy baby pose? So happy baby, knees are folded into the chest. We're holding, we can hold the big toes, we can hold the ankles, we can hold around the back of the knees. So your feet, your knees, your legs are wide apart, your feet are orientated towards the ceiling. You're rocking side to side across the back of your pelvis. You could be moving yourself by reaching up into one heel and then the other. You can be reaching your heel up to the centre to make you rock side to side, or you could reach your heel out to the side, but you're more likely to roll over onto your side that way. So reaching one leg and then the other up to the ceiling. And also maybe another good shake out for those legs before we lie down. Rest. So, yes, I will mute you again in a moment. So now is the time to make sure you're going to be warm. I'm just going to lie. Yes, lie and focus on our breath. So settling down. When everyone's settled, we'll do some big sighing breaths. You can hear me sigh and then hopefully you'll sigh. So settling onto your back, so ever you're most comfortable. I'd like to see all the nice cozy blankets. So it's a good sign. So so I think everyone's settled now. So when you're ready, we're going to have 3 or 4 big sighing breaths. So letting the breath come in. And again, let the breath come in. And one last sighing breath. So let the breath come in through the nostrils and a big sigh out through your mouth. And just now settling, letting your body settle, letting your breathing settle, and letting your awareness settle. First of all, with your breathing. So gathering your attention into where you feel your breath most clearly in your body. And it may be that you're lying with your hands on the front of your body, and that's where you feel your breath. Or it might be that you just feel your breath within you using your awareness. It doesn't matter where you feel your breath. Allowing your breath to be exactly as it is right now. Not feeling that you need to change anything, but just allowing the breath to come in its own time, the breath to leave you in its own time. So we receive the inhalation and we let the out breath go. And maybe what bringing our attention to our breathing teaches us is yeah, a good lesson for all of life. Being open, being receptive, letting it go, letting it go. Letting the body rest. Be aware of the ground beneath your body, the points of your body in contact with the floor, and allowing the ground to support you. Being aware of the air around you. And the presence of others, even though at this time they're a little bit more remote than we're used to or like. And all the time the feeling of the breath coming in, the breath leaving you. In a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl 3 times. So just let yourself carry on resting until the 3rd sound has gone. So take your time. I'm going to unmute you and stop recording.